The 2020 presidential campaign is heating up, and there are a whole range of issues being discussed. But foreign policy is really low on the list. I had the opportunity to sit down with Andrew Yang, who you probably know as the candidate of the universal basic income, $1,000 check every month into your account. But I wanted to get his take on a range of foreign policy questions. After nearly 2 decades of U.S. presence in the Middle East, things have only gotten worse there. What role should the U.S. be playing in that region?
Our goal should be to try and stabilize the region without open-ended military commitments. And so to the extent that we have allies we can work with in the region, we should invest in diplomacy. I think it was Mattis who said, if we spend less on diplomats, we have to spend more on ammunition. So the goal should be to spend more on diplomats. At the same time, I've signed a pledge to end the forever wars. We've been in a constant state of armed conflict for at least 18 years. And that's not the will of the American people, and that's not the way it was designed in the Constitution.
Unfortunately, some of our alliances seem to be shifting, specifically in Syria. Yes. And the Turkish intervention there over the last few days. Turkey seems moving towards authoritarianism. Erdogan is emboldened and doing more to protect his own power than work with the United States and other NATO partners to come up with a peaceful resolution to Syrian conflict. What does that say about the future of democracy and the fragility of it right now?
The international norms are disintegrating. It's a massive problem. And to me, Donald Trump has accelerated the disintegration in various ways where it's hard to push other countries to pursue things that may not be in what they perceive to be their self-interest if you don't seem to have a higher set of principles that you're bending over backwards for. And unfortunately, that's where America is right now. It's going to be a massive challenge to see what we can rebuild and reconstitute in the wake of the Trump presidency. Unfortunately, it's much easier to destroy than it is to rebuild trust. But rebuilding trust is what we have to do with partners that want to work with us. And if you find that someone that you've been an ally with has reached a point where they actually don't want to work with you on various shared goals, then you have to react to that accordingly.
And what about the opposite? I mean, we had this deal with Iran that we backed out of last year.
Iran, which to me was a massive mistake. And it wasn't just us and Iran in that deal. It was Germany and UK and others. Now the timeline doesn't make sense anymore, so you can't re-enter the deal and say, hey, we're back. But the goal would be to re-enter and reform that deal with different timelines.
Can we contain Iran's intervention in the Middle East while simultaneously working with them? I mean, are they an adversary that you think that we can have I don't want to say cooperative relationship with, but one that is less contentious than it's been over the last 40 years?
Well, I think that countries have different goals in different arenas. And so if you can find a way to satisfy their goals in one space while still disagreeing with them in another, I think that's appropriate. And if you're the United States, avoiding a nuclear-powered or nuclear-armed Iran is a top priority. And so you should be pursuing every avenue to make that happen, even if you don't meet every goal you have for that relationship in the region.
Climate change is an issue that's facing the entire world. How will you work with other countries to save us from what seems to be imminent catastrophe?
First, you have to get your own house in order and try and move towards more sustainable forms of energy. Second, we need to make it more compelling for other countries to adopt wind and solar and renewable forms of energy as opposed to coal and fossil fuels. And particularly for developing countries in places like Africa, they're going to do whatever they think is in their best interest economically. So you have to make that compelling, which may include subsidizing many of these technologies and installations in other parts of the world, which we do with other exports to the Exim Bank, but we need to be applying that to renewables. One thing I would do immediately is convene a global geoengineering summit because right now there are hundreds of scientists working on various geoengineering solutions and implementations, but there's no convening, there's no global consensus around it. And realistically, 25 years from now, if China thinks it's in its best interest to launch various geoengineering measures, they will likely do so without consulting with us. So we have to try and get in front of that as quickly as possible.
Donald Trump came into office as non-experienced in the political and governmental realm. You and other candidates will be learning on the fly. What sort of people, advisors, will you surround yourself with, and what sort of plan do you have in place to address some of these larger international issues that you may not personally have a lot of experience with?
Building the Yang administration will be such a joy because we're going to get tremendous people from both sides of the aisle who want to solve problems not just here in America, but internationally. Mm-hmm. So I've had the pleasure of speaking to and meeting with various experts in foreign theaters, China experts and Middle East experts, and we're going to build a dream team. It's going to be a lot of fun. At the end of the day, a lot of these issues, there's no right answer. It's one reason why we elect a president is that many of these things are about judgment and values, but you have a much better chance of accomplishing your goals if you have the right guidance and perspective, and that includes bringing in people who've been working with particular foreign leaders or in other parts of the world for decades.
So how did he do? Andrew Yang has clearly infused the campaign with some innovative ideas about economics and employment. But on foreign policy, he's still got some work to do. We already know what it looks like to have a president who is not engaged with those issues and who doesn't heed the advice of advisors with years of experience on some of our most important foreign challenges. The next president needs to do better.